Good morning. Good morning. A couple of people. Wow, look at this, Jenny. Wow. Things are happening. Hang on, you're muted. I'll unmute you, see if it works. Okay, yeah, you've got a microphone somewhere.
Yeah, I'm setting up my monitors and all that stuff finally came in. So, yeah.
Love it. Looking cool. You got some
I
lights
can't
set up
get,
as well.
I can't get my monitors to talk to my computer. So
Okay.
I might be going on Facebook calling you or Muddy. So I've been trying all week and I've done it before, but for some reason I can't get it to
Okay.
talk. So yeah, once I get it set up today, yeah.
We've got some challenges there. Fair enough. Irina, hello there. Seen you for a little while. You're looking great. They are very, very nice. I really like your camera shot, and that looks really great. Your lighting's nice. Very good.
I can do one. I can do even more lights.
Oh,
I
look at
have
that.
all the lights around.
Oh, that's cool.
I just don't have them during the calls because it's too much light right now. 5 o'clock.
Yes, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that's right. I have these that I can do that.
Yeah.
When you want to work, you don't want to have lights quite so bright in your eyes.
Yeah, when you're in Arizona at 115, you don't want all these lights that blaring at you too.
No.
When I teach, I do that, but when I'm on a call, I just less light.
Fair enough. Yeah. Oh, that looks great. It's great to see you again.
Thank you.
And I think Tamara might be hiding in the background there somewhere too. We've got a few people that are joining us.
I'm
this
hiding.
morning.
It's 5 a.m. here, my friend.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I think if we continue to get lower numbers at this time, then we should consider a different time slot, but we'll see. So it was quite convenient for Blue to make it at this time slot, and then often he can't make it. So so there you go. That's all right. So there's only a couple here. It could be a quick call, but we'll see. We did have one question that came through about how do you stay up on top of the new releases if you're not able to catch all the these calls. So this, oh, hang on, what we got there? Just going to mute you there, Jenny. For the moment. Oh, look, it's Muddy. Muddy's joining us. That's great. A few people coming in. That's great. So it probably is a little bit redundant me talking about how someone could access these calls, talking about it on the calls, and not knowing how to access the calls. But I intentionally live stream these to YouTube, not so much for the live aspect of it, but for the playback, for the on-demand nature of it. And so we have a kind of quiet Obvio channel on YouTube that we just post these to, and so that's the way to catch up on these calls. We have talked quite a lot about doing some change log sort of updates and things like that, and I think that will come. We haven't done it up to this point because of how fast we're operating, and so sometimes we're yeah, maybe that's an excuse, but really what we do is we're working on the fixes or the new features and things like that, and that's taken priority over documenting all of the changes that happen. So normally it's the little changes here and there, and new features that we keep that we let you know on these calls. We try to do this. We do it every week, and so this is the place to kind of hear about new changes that have happened. So thank you, Muddy. That's the channel there, Obvio Online. Someone else had Obvio. So that's that. Now there's questions. You can post questions on the dashboard that you came through. Ask a question, and with a small number that we have, you can also put that in the chat. So there's no other questions at the moment. We've had another milestone, I guess, with Obvio. We had our largest event so far, and which went really well. So we had over 50,000 attendees on at the same time across a few different events, but that all worked really well. So that's our next. Our largest to date before that was about 39,000 people. So going to 50,000 was great, and so it's nice to know that the system can operate. There's a few efficiencies that we can that we're tweaking and ways of managing those sorts of numbers, but it was impressive to have it, and generally worked very well. So so that kept us busy as well. Marketplace is still it's still sitting there. There is a couple of key things that need to complete on that before we can push that through. But we promise that it is coming. It's just hard to define exactly when. So that's There's not really much else to report. We had a few other little tweaks here and there that we've made, and we're talking about some other exciting ones coming along, but nothing major to announce right now. So I've given you an opportunity if you've got any questions that you might have. So remember, you can ask questions. Our priority is to talk about Obvio and what you're playing around with, what you're thinking of trying to do, or that sort of thing. But of course, we're always happy to talk about events in general, online events, and how you're doing these digital events, maybe getting some ideas from our group. And then, of course, inevitably, we get talking about production as well, and the gear that we use and how we set it all up and make it all work. Always happy to geek out on that stuff too. But at the moment, there are no questions and no one chatting in Zoom chat. It could be the fastest one ever. Jenny's holding up gear and thinking, what do these bits do?
It doesn't match the picture.
Doesn't match the picture. What have you done audio wise now? Something's changed. Is that just a phone or something that you're using at the moment to connect?
Why?
On your phone. Oh, this sounds not great now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
Better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. No, the parts. Oh, wait, here it is. All right, so it's this thing.
This is like assembling something from IKEA. You're gonna start throwing bits apart.
All right, I found the part.
Okay. Yeah, that looks like the monitor. So is this a monitor arm or something that you have?
This is the Wally extra tall dual monitor mount.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good. Hey, Jeff.
It looks like it's going to be a project. I thought I was going to get it done quick, but apparently not.
Okay. Well, as we work through a couple of questions here, we'll be entertained by what happens there.
Hey, I aim to please.
We'll yeah, we'll yell out if we see any fire or anything, any sparks flying. Or okay, good, great.
Okay.
All right, I'll mute you again there for the moment, and we'll look at a couple of these questions. Okay, so Irina was talking about marketplace. So yeah, I'm sort of affectionately calling. We know that marketplace has been in beta, and it still continues to be in beta. The one of the key problems that we have with it at the moment is that there's a kind of a major bug in there at the moment, that when you're making a bunch of edits, it can actually go to a white screen. We affectionately call it the white screen of death, and it kind of deletes everything that happened. There's a bug in there. Now, at the same time, we also discovered, or not so much discovered, but realized that we needed a few extra other functions and features in Marketplace. And what it meant is really a total rebuild of that module so that we can do a whole bunch more that we want to do on that page. So that's, we've been saying that's close, it's close, it's close. But it is, and I refer to it as version 2 because it really is a completely different build of the marketplace. Very similar in the thinking, but much more flexibility in the way that you can build out the modules and things of the page builder that we're really excited about. So yeah, to answer your question, Irina, there was there is a video that kind of explains how it is at the moment, but I guess I just have a warning about trying to use it at the moment because we know that there are some bugs there, and so it will be better to wait for version 2 and for us to be able to give some training on that, do a separate video and say this is now how it works. It will still be in beta when we first release it, which means that it'll be only for people that request it. And the reason that we do that is that people then acknowledge that it is beta, and that we don't encourage people using those beta modules for production, for key events. So that's really where that sits at the moment. So if you've got other ways of handling your tickets at the moment, how you sell it, then I would stay with that for the moment. But yeah, I think once you see version 2, I think you'll be quite excited by it, as we are. So that's where that sits at the moment. Cool. Let me see. I haven't got Heather here either to track my questions. Yeah, that was that one. You're putting it together. So Lizzie, I'm new and have been putting together items. Would you discuss what is a good quality microphone and lavaliers? Okay, sure. So it depends often on the setup and your required movement. So you spoke about lavalier possibly means that you do need to move around a little bit more in your space. Often when we don't have to move very far, we're using more like radio style microphones, like larger microphones. That's what That's what I'm using. I'm kind of in a space where you may not be able to see it. Oh, there you go. Yeah. And so on a stand, and you'll often see people where they have larger diaphragm microphones, or bigger microphones that give a real full sound. And I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, Lizzie, but I tend to use a priority of the importance of things that you focus on. And I appreciate you asking about audio first, because it really is key. Just quickly again, I say that the very most important thing is internet, right? Is your connection to the internet. And so ideally you'd be connected over a cable, an Ethernet cable, not using Wi-Fi. So people say, why, Wi-Fi works great. It's awesome. And it doesn't matter how great your Wi-Fi signal is. There will always be, just by the nature of it going to radio frequency, little micro dropouts, and you'll hear that. And you often hear it when you're on calls with people, and it just breaks up a little bit, just a little bit. Every now and again you hear it break up, and that's Wi-Fi. And so it doesn't matter how close you are, none of that. It's all to do with how Wi-Fi works and converting to radio frequency. So we always recommend that you use an Ethernet cable and have that connected to your router. And sometimes that means going to get a 50-foot cable or a 100-foot cable, and you run it through your house and connect it to the router and plug it into your computer. So that was the first thing. The second thing is audio. And I totally believe that you can have you can have the most amazing camera image. If you've got terrible audio, people will turn off. But the converse is true, and that is, you have terrible video, but if you have great audio, people will hang around. And so because of the connection that we have with what we hear, there's something about connecting with someone as you hear that their voice is close, that it makes a big difference. And so often people talk, there's something that's really, I really like this thinking, and that is that it's not so much what people think, it's what people feel. And so I say that because when we're on these Zoom calls all the time and people are using their, built-in microphones and they're in this echoey space, what they think is, I can hear them fine. I can hear their words. Sure, it's echoey or whatever, but I can hear them. What they might be feeling is, I feel a little bit distant from this person. There's something about this, there's some separation between us because there's so much of an echoey sound between us. And so the cognitive load, albeit lower brain sort of stuff, is what is it about, I can see this person close, but they sound distant. They sound further away, and why is that? And therefore, having really good close sound makes a really big difference in online events. And so I always work from the point of, if I can have a radio style microphone, then that's my preference. That's I want to get as good a sound as I can. And so you asked for sort of specific models and things. Really popular ones are the Shaw's and the SM7B. Is that the one we're saying at the moment? That's the XLR. What's the
MV7? Oh, Muddy just got it.
There we go. Thank you. I thought one of you would say that. Great. Yeah. MV7. And it's a really good microphone that has lots of off-axis rejection, it's called, where it's really just connecting into your voice nice and close. And if there's other noise around, it's not picking up that as much as some other more sensitive microphones, and it gives a really good sound. You get a good boom stand for it, and then now you can have that nice and close. Some people, I really like my image to not have my microphone in it, and the way that I have my setup here, I'm able to have my microphone sort of come up from below, my camera's up a little bit higher, and so it means that you can't see the microphone. And I think it sort of works well in this shot. Lots of people, there's more of a shift to having the microphone in the shot now, and that's just what it is. It's kind of that podcasty type, look, and so having the microphone in there. And if I couldn't get my microphone as close as I can, and it had to be in the shot to get it closer, then I would do that. So going from that, and let's assume that you need to be able to move around a bit more, and you can't just be in that stuck position, sort of in front of a desk or that sort of thing. Then you would need to move to something else that's not a radio mic, but either a lavalier or a headset mic. So something to think of with the difference between lavalier, even if you get it up on your shirt, sort of up high, you can see that you often hear the sound change when you're moving your head from side to side. Even though it's here, you're moving away from it, the sound can be a little bit inconsistent. And so particularly if you're doing something on a whiteboard or something, you're turning around and you're doing that and your head's moving around from side to side, a lavalier, you're going to probably get inconsistent sound as you're moving around. Obviously, if you do a headset, then it's always with you, right? It's always nice and close. And so I like the once again, there's always a big range of these, but I can't even remember the brand now. I went to a music show, like a Guitar Center equivalent type place, and I spent about $60-$70 or something on just a little head-worn headset with two ears, two over the ears, over both ears. And I've got great results from that. I was really happy with it. It's obviously it doesn't sound like this, because this is a different sort of microphone, but it still has a really clear sound and it's really consistent. So of course you can go right up into the Sennheisers, and there's DPAs, and like you can spend serious money on headsets. The other thing to consider with that is that if you are moving quite a bit, then you probably want to go wireless, so that you're not tripping over cables and things like that. And the one way of doing that is the Rode Wireless Go. Oh, it's just it dropped out of my memory there for a second. Now I'm going down. Yeah, thanks, Muddy. Oh, I didn't actually look at the chat. Had to prove to myself that I could remember it. So yeah, Rode Wireless Go. What this is it actually is a little microphone in itself. It's a microphone and a receiver. It's wireless, and you can connect it to your computer, and that now is a wireless microphone. And while it is a microphone in its own right, it also has an input to plug in a lavalier or a headset. And so you can plug that into it. It's got this nice tiny little sort of belt pack type idea, and then now you're free to move around. And so that's what I would recommend. There also is a DJI version as well, which is also very good, and something that Blue talks about. So it's just another another example of a very similar thing. And so once you do that and you get a headset for it, that would be a really good setup. The other part of the audio chain is thinking about, depending on how much interaction you have, audio interaction that you have with people, you want to think about that too. And ideally, you would do a headset or earpiece for that return audio. So what you're hearing from other people is going into a headset, so that Zoom does an echo cancellation, and it's very, very good at it. But what it's doing is when someone's talking and you've got your microphone, that sound's going into your microphone, and Zoom is canceling it out and saying, no, let's not have that there. What can happen then is that if you're talking at the same time, sometimes you sort of talk over each other. That's when it can kind of cut off, and you're not quite heard properly, and then the other person's coming through. It works best when you can have even like an AirPod or something, earpiece, can be wireless, means that you can hear really well when other people are speaking, and Zoom's not having to do all that cancellation. Now, if you're not doing a lot of it, and in fact, I'm doing it today, but I'm doing most of the talking, but I have got open speakers here, and Zoom will be cancelling that out. If you're not doing lots of interaction, then it may not matter so much. But if you are doing lots of that back and forth, then you might choose to have, some sort of headset on, little earpieces, whatever it is, to be able to get that audio back. Is that helpful? You've got other questions there, Lizzie? You're welcome to unmute and go for it. Hang on.
Good morning.
You, Jenny.
This is my 8 a.m. morning face. I apologize.
Okay,
I couldn't run in to catch the call this morning. Well, it's just, the past couple months I've been processing. I did the TV. I think I was in TV 6. I was going through everything that I had from COVID because I was working for an agricultural group at that time. And we had to pivot to get ready for this new way of communicating with all the membership. And so I was creating programming. We did speakers. We did one of our legislative where we had our senators from Pennsylvania on the call. And we were, so it was very nerve wracking in that kind of atmosphere. It was just like working off of Zoom and doing this. So when I went to TV6, I was like, okay, I can do this. I can make this my business. And so I started assessing the pieces that I had already. And I thought, okay, so I just ordered the 360, is it Insta? Oh gosh, I can't even think of the name.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just ordered that, but I really need to take a look at like the microphones. I want the quality to be good. I've got huge monitors. I always use, Mac products or Apple products, lighting. I mean, I think I have all these other components and I'm just about ready. And I've even compiled 15 people that are professionals across the United States to tune in with me to do like a trial run on some subject matter. So, I mean, I'm slow, but I'm methodical. And I just want it to be good. But I am worried about my microphones because there isn't anything that I've invested in. And I think I need to do that before we get ready here. But I'm close. I'm very close. I would say within the next 3 weeks, I would have my test committee ready to sit in on a session with me.
That's great. It sounds like you're going right down the right laneway. Like you're working it all through. And I think that camera is great. Insta360 is a really great camera, and it can track with you as you move around a little bit. And what was that I held up? Marley, this is the Insta360 camera, which I'm not really set up to show you very well. In fact, if you just Google it, you'll get a much better view. But it just happened to be sitting on my desk. It's a great little webcam because of the pan tilt zoom that it can track you around. It's a 4K camera, and it has a really good sensor with good light, and the color is really good on it too. And so we've just found that they're a good camera to use. So you'll be happy with that. I think the key obviously is to try to get it up at eye level, and so having everything raised and then getting it in a place where you're able to see everybody else clearly without your eye line going too far away from where they are. So it's always a trick, right? Because what I'm looking at now, my camera is just above my screen, but you will know, and you can tell if I'm looking at you right now versus now I'm looking at the camera. It's amazing the subtle difference. Like it's only very slight, but you can see it. And so it's amazing how in tuned we are to the pupils of the people that we're talking to. It's incredible, and because you can do it from the other side of the room, you can see whether someone's looking at you or not. It's amazing. So so getting it as close as you can is really good. And the eye height is really important too, right? Because and obviously I'm not picking on you now because of your setup. You weren't set up to do this right now, right? But it's a good example of when you can see someone's ceiling, you know that you are looking up at them. And so there is something about as we communicate now, we're not talking eye to eye. We're not when we're looking at it's a different angle, and there's just something subtle about that says, what is it? Am I sitting lower? What is about this situation? But it's really common in calls, isn't it? That everyone just opens their laptop on a table and it looks up their nose. It's like, and that's just that's the view you get.
My is my ottoman this morning, so yeah.
Fair enough. Yes, and people come as you are today. Like there's, I would hate people to be thinking that they don't want to turn on their cameras because Grant's going to tease them about their setup. That's not at all what this is about. So, but it's just an example of it as we think about it. Right. Definitely don't come in from your car like that. That would be the worst thing, Marley. You wouldn't want to be in your car. She turned straight off. So
no, that was me the last I was on the road on the car. Right. So.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad that people are able to join it wherever you are. Oh, well, that looks nice, Marley. That's a nice view.
Can you talk a little bit too? Well, I have the question, like some of the things that I will be doing, I could be interviewing somebody and it could be in an outside setting. So is there anything to take into consideration where, when I'm setting up as my little studio, it's a controlled setting. I'm outside. How do I have something of quality that will like get rid of any background noise or whatever for interview purposes?
Yeah. So once again, really close microphones, help with that. There's certain shotgun microphones and things that you can get. They're called that are designed for that, and they can have wind filters on them, or wind socks that they put over them to stop the wind. There's lots that can be done. Sometimes lavaliers are used, and they're put under the clothing, and so then that's it looks good because you can't see a big microphone, but it also is another windshield as well. So wind is something that you want to think about with being outside. Zoom itself does a pretty amazing job at the noise reduction, things that are not the human voice. I'm often on a call and people will not complain, they'll apologize for, oh, I'm sorry, someone's doing something next door, or someone's mowing their lawn, and you're sitting in Zoom and you're none the wiser. You'll say, I can't hear that at all. Like you're hearing it really loud, but Zoom is totally canceling it out and doing a really good job of that. And so that's a good thing. I guess the outside obviously you avoid it wherever you can, right?
Mm.
Because you really want to get that sound as good as you can. However, there might be times where it adds another element to what you're doing to be outside, and so then that can compensate for that a little bit, or you compromise a little bit of the audio because you're gaining something by being outside. So
Yeah. Well, and I'm working in agriculture, so some of these interviews will be outside because I'm going to experts to ask for certain subjects, and we could be in the middle of somebody's garden, we could be doing all kinds of stuff.
that's great.
We could be in someone's kitchen inside, but with that, it just, I'm not used to doing that outside component, so that does make me a little nervous, and so I'll get over it.
Yeah, well, and something to think about too is what can be pre-recorded, and when you pre-record, you've got a bit more flexibility in what you can do in your editing of that, and the audio processing that you can do post, and so there's a bit more control that you have then when you do an edit, and then so that could work well, and then you can have live questions and things like that with the person that might be inside somewhere, and that makes it a bit easier. However, I totally get. In fact, in a couple of weeks, I'm doing an event that I've done for 16 years or so. It's called TreeNet, and it's street tree managers from all over Australia, and so there's arborists, and there's a whole range of different people that work for the different councils and all that, and how they manage the green canopies of our cities, which is always fascinating, right? And so lots of what we do is outside, and we do recordings of walks through streets and walks around botanic gardens and things like that, and specifically looking up at trees and pointing at things and people asking questions and being able to ask. So I get close to what you're talking about because of that need to ask questions in the situation, to be able to say, can you show me that little bit again, or can you show me the top of that tree, or can you show me whatever it is, can you dig that hole again, and whatever it needs to be. There is something really powerful about that hands-on happening right there and then. And the wireless, the Rode Wireless Goes that we were talking about before, with a headset would be really good in that situation, because you're looking around, you're looking up and around and moving your head and things like that, and can work well. Now the kit, I think there is a single kit of the Wireless Go, but there's the most popular one is a dual kit, and so it has one receiver and two transmitters, which means that in that interview style, you could essentially get a dual setup, have two headsets plugged into the transmitter that you put in your pocket or whatever. You've got one receiver. That receiver would go to the computer or to a camera if you were pre-recording, and now you've got you and your interviewee being able to talk freely and have really good sound. So that could work really well. This is something to consider too.
Thank you for answering some questions.
Yeah, and there's always more and more questions, and I think that the key is to get into it and just start, playing around with it and learning it and doing what you need, and know that there is lots of different communities that are willing to share what they've learned, often the hard way, and we are one of them. You're welcome to always, every week we're here asking, answering questions, talking about things, and so happy to go on that journey with you too. So
yeah, the family's been kind of on the perimeter. They'll listen when I jump on these calls, and they keep
Right.
kicking the crutch out every week. I'm like, if I say something, they'll be like, that's a crutch. And they like take their foot and kick the air, you know, I'm like, I know. Okay. So, but I'm making progress and I'm just about there to do my test one. So I'll be good.
That's
Now I got to
great.
get into and I need to get my setup in place. So that'll probably generate some more questions next week.
Having a test event is brilliant. It's really the best way of really getting things going and questioning how you're doing things, and because then you can go back and you can watch the recordings yourself as well, and you can listen to it and see how it all looks, and take notes from that. And yeah, there's no substitute for that practice, So
Okay.
yeah,
All
that's a
right.
great
Thank
idea.
you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, Tamara, you were being very patient. I noticed that last weekend that I couldn't allow users to control their mics, their miles.
No, it's Mike's.
Cool. I must have just read that down. Mics. Sorry, I just lost that within the chat. Okay. This made it so that when people entered and left breakout rooms, they're automatically muted. This might be a Zoom thing, but is there a way to control this? I have a timed event where people can't afford to lose time turning on. Okay. Yes. So it is a setting. There's settings always that are set before the meeting, like there are meeting setting, and then there's in meeting settings. I'm just looking here now. Yeah. So in the participants tab, there is an option when you go to the more button. There's an option that's called mute all upon entry. And so that is defaulted on, which means that when anyone enters the meeting, it's muted. And when someone goes into a breakout room and then they come back from a breakout room, it's effectively them leaving the meeting and coming back in the meeting. And so because they're coming back into the meeting, then they will be muted. My assumption, strong assumption, is that if you turn off mute all upon entry, then that won't happen. And if they're unmuted and they go to a breakout room and they come back, they'll come back unmuted. So
That will
it's
solve it.
Yeah.
I could not find it. I feel like it used to be in a different place, but literally 2 weeks before I was able to do it. And then last week I was like, where is this?
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's funny that they moved a bunch of things into security. And so there's a few options there, but that one's not there. So security is like, what do you allow participants to do? So that's where you can say, can they screen share or chat, rename, unmute themselves? Can they unmute themselves? Which is different from mute upon entry. And so there's the security settings, but yeah, in the participants tab and then more at the bottom, and you'll have things ask all to unmute. That seems like a crazy thing
I
to do.
swear it was in a different place.
Yeah.
A few.
Right. There's that's where we have the play, join, and leave sounds as well. So we default them to off because you can imagine on larger events, yeah, it sounds like the doorbell's going off all the time when people are coming in and out. But it is handy in some smaller meetings to have those chimes turned on so that someone doesn't sneak in and you didn't realize and you're talking about them, as an example. Yeah, and so then there's a bit of double up. Allow participants to unmute themselves, rename, and start video. Is also in the security settings there too. So, cool. Yeah. So have a play with that, and I think you should be you should be cool to be able to turn that off, those in meeting settings. So it's one of those things we've spoken about a bit with Obvio, is that we are working towards providing a few extra options when you create areas of some of the some of the meeting settings that you can't change in meeting. And so we're looking at that, so that when you create a new area, you may have an option of 5 or 6 different options that you could choose that are Zoom meeting settings that you can't change within the in-meeting options. So we're looking at that. Cool. Make sure I don't miss any other questions there. So this is a time where, particularly when I'm by myself, that using the question, post a question on the dashboard is the best. That I will prioritize those. So we've got a few there. So I'm going to go to those, and then I'll keep an eye on chat, but the questions will be the key place that I go to now. So Marty says, how does Obvio use AWS? What does it mean when an attendee gets a network error when trying to join the dashboard? Yeah. So Obvio is hosted on Amazon Web Services server infrastructure, which is arguably the world's best as far as cloud server infrastructure goes, and works really well for us. One of the things that can happen with a network error is it can be some little bugs that we have. It can be higher traffic, but not simply just higher traffic. So they're always the things that we're working on, and I feel like 9 times out of 10 we might have these micro moments that things like this happen, and we get onto it really quickly, and it normally is something else that it's not often just as simple as we had thousands of people come and want to join, and now Obvio stopped working. We've been really good at making that work. What happens is, as we add these other integrations, for example, ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, things like that, they can be quite chatty, and that you can have some people that don't have an event running at the time, but might be doing an update that then pushes, for example, they might put a tag on 1,000 attendees. Well, now that tag then gets synced with Obvio and pushes a whole bunch of data all at once, and each one of those integrations is different, and how much data it sends, and how it sends it, and how much at a time, and all of that are all the things that, as we add an integration, we won't necessarily know exactly how it's going to work at scale until we've got it available for people to use. So it's very much inside baseball what I'm talking about here, but I'm just trying to give a little bit of insight into how Obvio works, and then how we're trying to shift things like that, those integrations, and make it still important, but a sort of secondary to some of the other key functions of how Obvio works, people logging in, getting users in, and attendees and things like that. So that's what we're working on right now. So rarely is an AWS problem. There will be some other combination of things that we're able to identify and get onto quickly. But I do encourage you to, if you ever see little errors or things, then jump on the Facebook group or the live chat if you can access that, or send us a quick email at help@obv.io and let us know. And that just can be really helpful data for us as we're squashing those bugs. So Hopefully that answers it for you, Maddie. Joy said, I had an event yesterday and wasn't able to bring up the button when designing the dashboard. Wasn't able to bring up the button when designing the dashboard. So I gave the person access to the registration to come into Zoom. The downside is that they were not able to see the dashboard. Help in creating the button on the dashboard. Okay. Is Joy still with us? Hey, there you
Yes.
are. Hey, Joy.
Hi. So, can I show you what I did first was to do a test, okay?
Uh-huh.
And
Mhm.
although it was visible, can I share my screen with you?
Yes, you can. Yeah, please.
Okay, so, okay, is it this? I hope it's this. Can you see that?
It's coming. Yes, I can see that.
Okay, so I was playing around with it after I had the event, but that first button, main stage, right? Although I could see it there, but when I actually did like a preview or a test, the buttons wouldn't show up. And
Okay.
I didn't know what I was doing wrong. So
Okay.
what I did was I went into, I think it was no, I went into the Zoom
To the Zoom
area
areas. Yep. Mhm.
and I opened, no, there's some place where you can, it says registration. Is
That's
it
right.
here?
Yeah, in the room. The room. Once you clicked on the room, that room number there.
Okay,
Yeah. Uh-huh. Once you click
right.
there.
And so
then-
what I did was I put this in the link and I gave it to them. So they went straight into the Zoom. But I
Uh-huh.
really wanted them to see that this right
Yeah.
here, because I wanted them to read what I had wrote, and I also
Sure.
wanted to put in an activity. So I know it's an easy process. It's been a long time. And I just don't remember how I was able to see, see the button. I thought I was following the right steps, but for some reason I must have forgotten one step,
So
because when you do it, you didn't see it.
just click on the settings there.
Right here?
Yeah, so you've got two main stage buttons there, right?
Well, that's because I was playing with both of them. So,
Trying to get
I thought,
working.
well, if this doesn't work, I'll try the other one.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that all looks okay. You've got join the main stage. Just double check. I'm pretty sure just look at the rules up the top there. The tab at the top that says rules. Sorry, come down. Yep, just there. That's it.
Okay.
We're just making sure that there's no rules there for hiding, and there are no rules, so that's good. And the settings, and it says that it's enabled. Yeah, so that should be fine. I'm just gonna jump in and have a look as an attendee. So you had a sample attendee there. And if you just double check this, let's see what it's doing.
What it would do is go back to the 3 organizations.
Yeah, okay. So I think that's the part that's just missing a little bit. So if you go down to attendees on the, yeah,
Yes.
that's it. Yep. You click on that. Yep. And if you click your sample attendee, which is great, it's always good to have one there. And then you could click that little person icon on the, yep,
Here?
that one. Yep.
Okay.
That's going to open. Now, this is exactly how someone would see your dashboard as an attendee. And what we can see there is
Right,
your
but
main
when
stage.
I would click on the main stage, and it better do it. Okay.
Was it
wasn't
not doing that?
It would go directly to it would go directly to,
You said back to the organizations.
yes, it would
Yeah.
go directly back to the organizations.
So yeah, so I think what might have been happening then is that you may have had it in, you were still in the editor. You may have had it in preview mode of the editor.
Okay.
And you're testing them, but you weren't testing it as a as an attendee. So
Okay.
yeah, and I was just able to replicate exactly that. If you're in preview mode of the dashboard and you click one of those buttons, it's going to try to join you to Zoom, but actually you're not logged in as an attendee, and so then it will kind of reset you and takes you back to the organization page. So everything was set up correctly. It was just that that for testing you would come and use that sample attendee or any attendee, and then you would test it as an attendee, and then that's how you would want to then add all of your attendees in and then get them their links so that they can join as individually, you know.
So I heard you share with someone that it was good to test first. So that's what I will practice today,
Yeah,
just
great.
so that I could be familiar with the process.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. No problems at all. I'm glad that you found a way, and that one way or another you still got people into your event. But I'm sad that
I
they
was
didn't
determined. I was
they didn't
determined.
I'm sad they didn't get to see your hard work on the dashboard. So.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So Marley says, I'm considering hosting a one-day live encore event to replay the highlights of my 3-day summit in May. Any advice for this kind of event? Yeah. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to hear what Blue has to say about this from a content point of view, and the concept of making a 3-day into a 1-day. I think encore events are a great idea because you're able to reuse the content, but still have live elements, right? So that you can potentially even be more available at the encore, particularly in the chat, so that you're answering questions as things are happening during that event. But then how important it is to still be able to come on and do live Q&A for people in between those sessions. So then I guess I'll just say this, and because I'm trying to channel what Blue would say, and Barry, what they would say about the advantages of a 3-day event over a 1-day event, and the journey that people go on, right? And the journey that you're able to take people on over that time, which is, I'm sure, the reason why you've done a 3-day event in the first place. So it feels like it is something different to try to condense that into a 1-day. And I wonder what you lose by doing that. What's the compromises that you're making by doing that? And is it ripping people off that are not getting that same experience? However, there's also the idea that you would, and I'm sure this is part of your thinking too, would be having people that did attend the 3-day event come back to the encore event as well and kind of recap over some things. Well, then that has a lot of advantages to it. So from a technical point of view, obviously you need to have some way of being able to play back that content, and you want it in a way that's really quite organic, in the sense that it feels the same way. That content comes back in as a camera input into that meeting, and so then you're able to seamlessly go between pre-recorded content and live content, like being able to drop in live and things like that. And whether I'm sure if you're calling it an encore event, that people know that it's going to have a chunk of pre-recorded content, so you're not trying to hide that, but having it seamlessly, be able to go from live to pre-recorded is a good thing. I guess the other thing to consider is how you edit your content down, to go from 3 days to 1 day. And it could actually make it really quite punchy, and could be a great way of getting your content down. Did you have any other specific questions about it, Marley?
I think that was super helpful. Thank you. I'm glad I was able to listen, because I'm just getting into the gym now, and I'm like, no, I can't hear in there. So thank you for that. I think I'm still toggling between condensing it into a 1 day or keeping it as a 3 day with just more space for me to do the live Q&A interaction, etc. Like to debrief on those sessions. So thank you for that insight, because that helps me like decide which way to go. I do have all of my sessions from my summit in May edited down to like the key parts. So I feel good about that. I just need to review all of those videos and pick what the highlight ones were without, I guess my challenge here is just more, like, I don't want to make any of the speakers that I don't choose feel bad, right? So this is my challenge in selecting what the highlight encores are. But anyway, technically, specific question. So that the transition between me live and my pre-recorded content to be as smooth as possible at an entry amateur level. I do have my husband who's my blue, and he's my tech guy. So I know that I can speak to him in your language and he will understand camera input, yada, yada. So I don't have like a switcher or any kind of like external device to do that switching. So what is it, just as simple as having a second computer that he might run with that content preloaded and we switch screens, like share screen, or is it a different process?
A little bit. So you can use some software, a software switcher essentially. So you could use something like OBS, which means that you can play videos back, and it has a virtual camera input into Zoom, and you could have your camera your camera input as well, so that then you can just switch between video playback and a camera input, and you could keep it quite simple. And so that could work fine. You can do a screen share, and it can work for playing out videos. And there's in Zoom there's an option to, in the advanced settings, there's an option to play back a video, and so you can point to a video file and then it will play that video and you're able to just play it out. And that can work quite well. It's clear, I think it's very clear then that it's pre-recorded. And so it's worth just testing that and see how that feels. But it's great. I guess having your husband work on the tech side of it, I think it's really key that you're not concerned about that, even though you're not delivering a bunch of content. For you to be able to be really active in the chat will be really helpful, and then also for you to be in the zone, so that when you come back to live, that you're able to just be really engaged with content and community. And your advantage of all these little clips is that you may be more likely to do chunks of them, rather than, okay, now we're going to watch an hour session. It might be like, now we're going to do a 7-minute, and now we're going to do a 10-minute, and we're going to do 3 minutes of questions in between, right? And it keeps it really punchy and engaging, because people know, okay, just a few minutes back, we're going to be live again. And you just keep that ball rolling of that. So that kind of that breathe in, breathe out type, process, that I don't need to talk to you about breathing, but
I'm like, it's perfect. That's what my event is pretty much about. So that's
right. Right. But yeah, I think about that in terms of the flow of an event, right?
Yeah.
And how do people breathe in a bunch of content, but then can have a moment to breathe out and to have that kind of moment as they sit with it, and then they have the Q&A, and they're hearing someone else's questions, and hearing someone else's questions sparks something for them, you know, like questions are really, really powerful in events.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we think that it's about the speaker. It's about the speaker answering all the questions with all their wisdom, but often it's actually hearing people's questions that that does something for us, that sparks something else and makes us think of other questions and makes us think about answers. And so getting to lots of questions is really important. So having question management is really good too, right? Having a system that you know that you can sort of manage the questions and keep that working. So yeah, there's a few
I
thoughts.
love that. I appreciate it so much. I got to master that because Marley Q's for questions. So I got to master that powerful questions
That's
aspect
awesome.
of it. Thank you so much for that, Grant. Thank you, everyone.
Sure.
Hope that was helpful or insightful for those of
I'm
you
sure.
listening.
I'm sure it was. Thank you, Molly.
Bye.
All right. That's a good one. Brittany, I am new here. I'm just getting started with exploring. We host 3-day webinar, often via Zoom. This is easy as the link is easily shared last minute to get attendee access. Is it easy to give last minute access using Obvio? Yes, it is. So there's a couple of different ways. Probably the easiest way is the sign up feature that you can enable on an event. Let me see if I can pull one up for you and show you, because this is it sounds like if you're probably doing these webinars, they're probably free, and you're probably just wanting to get as many people in there as you can, and you want to just
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly right. Yeah, they're free. We do them quite often. So really want to get into using this platform, but just like I said, just starting to explore to see for what events does it make sense or not make sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think the first thing to, which I'm sure is one of the reasons that you're looking at it, is to get people into meeting rather than webinar, right? And to get them into being able to see faces, and you know, that rather than it being just kind of a live stream or a webinar where it is so one-sided. Just being able to see faces, right, is really powerful. And there's something also about people observing other people engaging is engaging. And so that's something that we have seen, you know, for the 3 years of these larger events, is that people are more engaged when they see more people engaged. Don't know if I can say it any more simply than that. And so I'm sure I'm just supporting your idea of exploring different ways of doing these things, being able to see people, even if you don't have them talk, is still more engaging. You know, there's feedback. I mean, even just with what we're doing right now, there's I get nods, feedback. I can see people laugh at my stupid jokes, and you know, like it works. And so yeah, anyway, I don't need to sell the fact that meeting is better than webinar. I think it is. But let me just show you specifically what you were asking about. I'm just going to share. Let me think where I'm at. Yeah, I'll share this one. This is the event that we're in at the moment, that we're all in. What you can do, let me think for a second. Okay, so I'll just show you login first. Login is if people had a password, and you can actually set up a generic password in the settings, and you can send a link to everyone if they have already registered. If you knew that they were registered, then you can say, just put in the email that you registered with, and then put in this password, and you could set a generic password. That's one way. Now you can see here, right, that we've actually got a link to a sign up, and this is exactly what would work well for you. So yeah, it's not enabled by default, because it's not enabled by default because generally we're running events that are paid, right? Paid for events, and so it has to be a bit more secure. When you're doing a free event, you want to get as many people in as possible. You can enable the sign up page, and you can send this around to people. So it's as simple as first name, last name, email, sign up, and they'll be to your dashboard. And so now they'll hit the page, and then they can go to, however you set up your dashboard to join the call, away they go. So that's one way. There is, we were talking before about how you can use, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for what you're talking about, but there is this thing called registration link for a particular Zoom meeting. And so you can give this link, and what this will do is it's the same type of thing. You're going to get a first name, last name, email address prompt for anyone that comes to this link, and it will take them straight to the Zoom meeting. It'll bypass the dashboard and take them straight to the Zoom meeting. And so that is another option for kind of getting people. The reason we have that is we do it for, well, people use it for lots of different reasons now, but our key reason was getting our speakers into the meetings that we needed to get them into. And so it was bypassing the need for them to go through the dashboard, and just get them straight into the Zoom meeting that we need them to be in. But as we heard from Joy before, you can send that link to attendees, and it will get them in, and it does sign them up as an attendee. It's just that they don't know the dashboard is there because they don't go through the dashboard. So I would imagine the dashboard is actually a key feature of Obvio, because as we talk about that's a home for your event before, during, and after your event is that dashboard. It kind of holds it all together. That's where you can have resources and links to the next steps or the whatever it is, videos that you want to have on there. That keeps it all really clear. And as people come back, they might have a link to come back to the dashboard after the event, and that's where it could have some extra videos or like an on-demand version of the event that you had. There's all those sorts of options that tie people in, not just during the event. So that sign up feature could be perfect for what you're talking about, where you just want to send one link to everyone, away it goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. And I'd just say too that we've spoken before about using URL shorteners or redirection services, and we use Rebrandly extensively, rebrandly.com, and how I use that is I'm able to use my own custom domain names if I want to, and I can have a specific domain name, and I can have that go wherever I want it to go. And what's really handy about that is that I can then say I want it to go to the sign up page for before the event and during the event, and then after the event I might want it to go to another marketing website or something else. And I can easily change that in Rebrandly. And now when anyone clicks a link post-event, it's going to go where I want them, exactly where I want them to go. Just gives you, a little bit more flexibility. We actually do have some redirection in Obvio, sort of built in. You can take an event offline and you can force it to go to another URL if you want. So we've got a few different ways of doing it, but I just really like using Rebrandly for that. Cool. Well, you're doing well, everyone. I was thinking we were a little slow there to start with, and now we've got a few questions coming through. how are you going there, Jenny? You have had you were jumping up and down there for a while before, but you look like you're all over it right now. You want to talk to me? You got a question, or are you happy at the moment?
All right, I got it there. I got to
There we
turn
go.
my speaker off.
Oh yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I think there's a manufacturer defect because the bracket on here that holds the monitor, it's crooked, and there's no way to adjust it. So, yeah, it's this right here.
Crooked in what way?
Yeah.
As in you can't put something on it, or you wouldn't be
No,
able to...
when I put the monitor on, the monitor's crooked. I'll show you.
There's normally a little bit of adjustment in that. Look at this.
So the monitor.
Do you want it to be in portrait like that, or you want it to be landscape?
Yeah, because that's yes. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize. It's for the chat.
Okay.
So I can read the chat.
Nice.
And it's sitting like this. And it's the bracket, it's the actual bracket that's manufactured on the arm with no adjustment. So here, I'll show you.
Yeah. I'm far from not believing you. Oh yeah.
Oh, you never believe me about anything.
It's not
No,
true.
so see, this is level, but this is how it's sitting. Can you see it? See how it's crooked? That's straight. That's crooked.
Hey,
there's no way for
Jimmy.
me to.
Here we go. Here's tech support. Go ahead.
I'll jump on. I'm in Home Depot right now. I'll jump on a call with you afterwards. But it swivels. Just turn it. It may be stiff because it's brand new.
Yeah.
But I'll help you after the call.
But it's still, see how it's sitting wonky? But yeah, go ahead and do your
it will also help balance when you get your second monitor on. So I wouldn't really make any adjustments when you just got one on there.
Okay, well, I'll put my other monitor on then. Sorry to bother you at Home
Muddy
Depot.
does everything. He does everything. He moonlights as a Home Depot installer.
He does.
And so like if you ever need any help, with home installation, you can just call him. Home repairs. Muddy does everything.
Anything. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely here. I'll show you right in here. This bracket right here.
Yeah.
It's crooked. It's manufactured on their crooked. Yeah. See this one? It's actually level.
That whole thing should swivel.
Well, it does swivel. It does swivel, but it swivels up and down. It swivels up and down. But I need it to swivel left to right, but it swivels top to bottom. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's a manufacturer. You can actually lay it on the table. You saw me take it apart again for the third time, and you can see it's actually manufactured on there crooked. Darn it. But I'm going to do what Muddy says. I'm going to go ahead and put my other monitor on and see if that, solves it. But yeah, I'm School of Architecture. Everything's got to be straight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, yeah.
I'm very weird that way. Everything's got to line up. So
I don't think that's weird at all. Everything that you're doing is precision, and then you're looking at looking at something the whole time that's sloppy. You don't want that. So we'll find it. But
so everybody knows These lights are cheap. They're only $34, but they are fantastic. So anybody who's on a budget like me.
Nice. Well,
So I'll go ahead and put the other monitor on. Sorry to take up the meeting.
No. Look, people didn't leave while we were talking about this. They're like, this is the watching it unfold in real time.
Really? People didn't leave.
The people didn't leave. No, exactly. All right. Well, we'll come back. But Muddy's offered to have a chat to you. But I have used monitor mounts like that before. That the monitor can rotate on when it's on that. But perhaps those ones you can't. So, but we'll look forward to the next exciting episode. All right, I've got another question from Pam. Please go over minimal studio setup for beginners. How many TVs and connections are needed to have a nice speaker platform where the speaker can see the audience? What does the studio look like? Setup, cameras, TVs, connections. Been to Dean and Tony, that is Cadillac setup. What can a beginner do to host a conference event and look professional? How to get some speakers in the event from their location, not on the studio site, and look professional. Have good connections. What connections, hardware, internet speed, camera, do off-site speakers need? Appreciate all the responses. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, we spoke a little bit about it before when we were talking about audio, and we're kind of talking about getting good audio. Let me first talk about talking about what do you need in a studio to be a good experience for speakers. Yeah, I think it's one of the distinctives of Obvio and the origin story of Obvio and Blue and Barry thinking about doing a virtual event and making it as best an experience for the hosts as possible. That was a defining difference, I think. And Blue, it's one of those drawing on a napkin stories where he drew 9 TVs and was like, if there was 9 TVs in front of the speaker, just like what Jenny's doing, if there was nine TVs and we know that we could get 49, like a 7x7 grid of faces on that, then now we're getting to a point where hosts and speakers could see their audience. And so I'm not suggesting you need 9 TVs, but having a setup with larger TVs is really good. And the more the merrier, the more the better. It means that what it means is having a computer, generally having one computer for each one of those screens, so that you can launch Zoom on each one and then probably put it on a different gallery view page for each one of those. So of course you need to have an event that has more than 49. Generally we find with events that, I can't remember the number, but it's probably around 60% of the audience will have their cameras on and be cameras that you're wanting to look at. And so it does take a little bit of management when you're managing the gallery view, right? Because lots of people will have their cameras on and then point it to the ceiling, or they cover it up and they're sending black. And it's like, all I can see is black and you've got your camera on. And so as a host or a co-host in a Zoom meeting, you can go through and you can stop people's video. If they're clearly not wanting to share video, then you can help them by stopping video. What's important to remember in that is that when you stop someone's video, they can't enable it again. They can't turn their video back on if the host stops it. And so I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but it's good practice. It's good housekeeping practice that when you start an event to teach people about what you want. And what you want is to see people's faces, and you want them to be set up in a way that you can see them really well, and that works really well for the community. But if for a number of reasons, you could have very valid reasons why you do not want to be seen, then please don't cover your camera, but actually just hit stop video in Zoom. And that will mean that you can turn it back on whenever you want, and it'll make your gallery views nice and clean. So having a nice clear gallery view in front of you. Now this can be TVs, right? I've got a monitor that's a 32-inch monitor, which is a really great size, and I really like it. I wouldn't want to go any bigger than this for the work that I do. But when I'm doing more of events, you can do 42-inch, 50-inch, screens and have them a bit further back, and you can still see them really well. That can work great. So bare minimum, Pam, you're talking about like, what can you do just absolute minimum? Chances are you've got a TV that you could drag around somewhere, set it up on a dining table or something, and have it used as a monitor, and have a gallery view on that. And then you might have another computer and a camera and things that you can place around. It's one of the things with having a larger TV is that you might find that you could put a camera sort of in the middle of that, a little tripod or something. A camera in the middle of that TV would mean that you're looking in the camera, and you can kind of see through the camera, or behind it, you'll see lots of people's faces and gallery view and that sort of thing. And so I would think about that. So setting up a studio space where you might have multiple people, you got to think, are you setting it up to have multiple people, or is it really just one person? And how that works. So sound it gets really tricky when you start doing a studio for multiple people. It's multiple cameras often, it's multiple microphones, it's managing the microphones. It becomes a TV production. Whereas when you do, and this is what we do lots of, is a centerless event, right? Where there's no one single studio or one single place, but we have all of our attendees are remote and geographically diverse, and so are all of our speakers. And so that's often what we do. And so what that takes is preparing and prepping all of those individual speakers, and often we'll meet with them before the event. Actually, almost exclusively, we meet them before the event, a week out, and we'll work through those priorities again very quickly. Again, we want to make sure their internet's solid. We're going to work on their audio. We're going to get as best audio as we can. Sometimes we send kits out and we send them a microphone and we get them something to be really good quality. The next thing is we think about lighting. So you can have a great camera and poor lighting and it'll look bad. Conversely, you can have really like an ordinary camera and great lighting and it'll look pretty good. And so that's why lighting is more important than the camera. And so we think about how we can do that. Sometimes if it's a daytime event, we can get them in front of a window and have the window, the daylight coming straight onto them. There's lots of different ways that we can do to get lighting just right. And so we want to think about multiple point sources of light and things like that. And then we think about the camera. And so we'll say, if it's a webcam, if it's what's in the computer, we want to get that up at eye level. If we can get a different camera like the Insta360, is a Insta360 Link. Is a great camera, but yeah, it's a few $100, so it's a bit of an investment for some people. And then I've lost my place now. So internet, audio, lighting, camera, and then environment. So then we were just thinking about what what the space is around them. We might be thinking about that in terms of the sound as well, but also what can be seen. Is what can be seen distracting? Is there going to be people walking past? Sometimes with or without clothing. I've seen that before. Thinking about the environment is really important. So that's the type of prep that we would want to do for a remote speaker. It's thinking about all of those things. And more people have, they've had these sorts of conversations. It's not as new anymore. Their willingness to engage in that might be interesting. It depends on who you have. Generally, people are open to making it as good an experience as possible. So, and you can always use a little bit of peer pressure as well, and just say we want to make sure that you're looking as good as everyone else is that's coming in. So we want to make sure that you don't look the worst out of all the speakers or sound the worst or whatever it is. So that's a few things to think of I find those 5 things really helpful in guiding where I go with it, because it can be sometimes as simple as AirPods. They've got AirPods and they've got their built-in web camera, and that's all they've got. But we still can do things, and we still, get the laptop up on a bunch of books so it's at eye level, and then we look at what their room is like, and we look at the lighting, and have you got another lamp or two, and they get some lamps in, and they, things like that really make a big difference. So that's the type of thing you want to think about, and then it just builds and builds and builds from there. But I would definitely say, when you're thinking about a studio, think about it for one person. The complexity goes so much more with multiple people in an environment. We've done shows before where we have just people in the same location but in different rooms, because it was far easier to manage it within Zoom than it was to try to have them all on one camera, and trying to manage the sound for that and things like that. It was much easier to go set them up in separate bedrooms in a house, and it worked really well. So hopefully that's helpful, Pam. Dorita, is there any connectivity planned for social media? Gives a user an opportunity to put in pre-populated post with hashtags. Attendees can select the platform and the post has already prepared. Dorita, I saw this, and sorry I hadn't replied yet. I was still researching this. There's a couple of like plugins that I think would work. That could do exactly.
It's come up
what
a few times. You know what I'm
Sorry.
talking about, right?
I
Okay.
totally, yeah. Like share this, and then it's got
Yes.
pre-populated. Yeah, there used to be there was a service called Add This, and it was exactly that. It was like a little button that's set there, and when I went to their site now, it looks like they're shut down. As in they're shutting down or something. So I'm just looking for what there's a the alternatives. Oh yeah, share this was another one. So it could be as simple as being able to set it all up in something like share this. Enable online audiences to share and amplify your content across global web. Share this website tool can scale your web traffic. To easily customize. Yeah. I'd have a look at some of that. I don't at this point. I don't know that there's a huge advantage in us building that into Obvio, because at the end of the day, it's a button or a series of buttons that can be built into a blog post. and you could control all of that pre-populated content in the service that does that, and how the button works. What I will say though is that we did add just recently. I'll just show you this quickly. You may or may not have picked this up, Dorita. In the event settings, we added event description. And what this specifically is for sharing. So it used to be that if you shared the link on, Facebook or, X or whatever, it would say, Obvio use the platform used by Tony Robbins and yada, yada, yada. It was like this generic description text that was in there. Now it will be whatever you put in that event description is what will be shared on social media platforms. So you know what I'm talking about with a preview, when you have so you might have your you shared, you have your post text, and then it would have like a little preview of what that link is. That will now have your description in it. I encourage you to make sure you put that in early, because particularly Facebook will cache the description, and then it won't necessarily update. I don't know what the update frequency is, but if you don't have anything there and someone shares it, then it'll just be blank. Whereas if you get in there nice and early and put a sentence or two in there about what your event is, then as soon as that's shared once on Facebook, it'll be cached, because it'll be the first time that it goes to that address and picks up that description. So it's
As soon as, when you're saying as soon as what is shared, like what link is shared where people are sharing it on?
So anything that is is the login, the startup, the sign up page, the dashboard link itself, anything like those will have that preview will have that description in there. So if you were sharing the sign up page, for example, then the preview,
or the marketplace.
Yeah, or the marketplace. Yep, exactly.
Well, so does it pick up the marketplace description where the ticket is, or it'll still pick up the event description?
That's a very good question, and it's something that may be different for version 2 when we push through the new update for marketplace.
Okay.
So,
but that's good to know that we can just integrate something outside of the system in the short run. So yes, so the answer is yes, they can do it, just not within Obvio.
Exactly, and there's not anything that's of benefit, right? Because there's no internal data that needs to drive that. It simply is, this is the address, and here's the pre-populated text or logo or whatever you wanted to do with using something like share this, and so I would look at that. The thing that I was Googling was add this alternatives, and I found a few things. I just remember seeing add this was big on WordPress and stuff like that, for people easily being able to click it and just share things. But there was ways of being able to pre-populate some text or whatever. So, and the only thing that I think of as a possibility that would be interesting is tying it into points and like the leaderboard. And so we've kind of had that type of thing before, where you can give points for sharing. And so, and that, if we were to go down that line, then we want to tie it in somehow. And so, yeah, not close to that idea. So,
okay, great. Thank you.
Cool. No worries. All right. Okay, that was the last question that was posted on the dashboard. I haven't been tracking the chat all that much. If there was Oh, so Pam, sorry if you may have asked some follow-up questions. Okay. I can answer some of those. Okay, so speed of internet. So Zoom uses up to about 6 megabit per second upload, and are pretty similar in kind of in its download. So, but as we're talking now, like it's 3-4 meg up for me, and it's only 1 meg down, because there's only a few people with their gallery views on. So once you have like a full gallery view of 49 people, it starts to use a bit more data, but it's no more than 10 meg. And so a connection where you have, we always try to double what we need as our headroom. And so I would say 15 to 20 meg upload is kind of what you want. And you'll often get more on your download. The plans that you get are often, 50 down and 20 up, or 100 down, or a gig down, or, there's lots of different plans. And you'll have something up. Generally, if you can get a fiber connection to your home, then that is the ultimate. That's the best connection that you can have. So fiber connection to your property is the best. It's the lowest latency, and so it's the best connection. Satellite would be the opposite, where it's even Starlink is very good, and you can do Zoom calls and things on Starlink, but it is a little bit higher latency than what you would get from cable or fiber. So it's great for backup, and it is good to have. You think about your events. Always the thing with events is, what's the cost of failure? What does failure look like for your event if it really goes down? What does that look like, and how much would you pay in that moment to fix that problem? It's something worth thinking about. So the cost of failure is always the biggest cost to your event. So having another way out, another internet backup of some description, is a really good thing to have. I've got 4 different ways out of this place, different internet connections, and so even having a cellular connection as well is good if you're in a strong enough signal area. So that's that. Hardwired to the modem, absolutely. So your modem router, generally is the same thing. Whatever you're being provided from your internet provider, you probably have a modem router, all built in one, and that's probably your wireless connection as well. It will normally have a couple, if not 4, Ethernet ports on the back, and they're often yellow, and so you can get an Ethernet cable from any number of places. Walmart sells them, and you get them from office supplies, all that stuff. You can get, and they're not all that expensive. You get them on Amazon. You get them same day in most places, and get a nice long cable. It'll go from wherever that is, and then what often is the case now, you might need a dongle to connect to your computer. Your computer, modern laptops don't have Ethernet on them anymore because they're thinner. The laptops are thinner than the Ethernet port, and so you'll need to get a little adapter from USB-C to Ethernet or USB-A to Ethernet, just a little adapter, and you can get them from lots of places as well, stationary places and things like that. So yeah, you want to get that Ethernet connection. So then you said about 300 meg down. Obviously, that's plenty. 10 meg up will work. It will be okay. It just, if you were to if you were to have multiple people connecting from that one connection, or you were, and I'm talking about upload, right? Like I'm talking about people having their video on and sending. You want to think about that. I wouldn't do more. If you've only got 10 meg up, I wouldn't do more than one computer sending video. It might work, but it's not ideal. So so you think about that. The download would be fine. People just having computers connected with gallery views on them and not sending any video, that'd be fine. And if you had 300 meg, you could have, lots and lots. I think you're saying about the ping rate, or the latency. So generally we would want to see, if you did a speedtest.net, you want to see that ping around no more than 20 or 30 milliseconds. And that's actually what Starlink can do often, is about 30 milliseconds, which is very impressive, that it can do that. When you're on fiber, you'll often get sub 10, sometimes even sub 5 milliseconds ping speeds, and that's how long it takes for a packet of data to get from you to the internet service provider. So yeah, that's some pretty geeky stuff right there, but hopefully that helps you out. Megabyte. Well, now you're getting really geeky, Pam. So it's megabit. There is 8 bits in a byte. And so generally what we're talking about is megabit. Megabytes is actually 8. It's bytes divided by 8. Or bits divided by 8, sorry. So look at that. I'm working down, and then Muddy's. Let's see if we've said the same thing. Recommend a minimum of 10. That's basically, 20 or 30 is better. Upload speed is key. Wide internet stability. Look at that. It's almost like we're saying the same thing. Cost of failure is so high, yeah. For redundant fiber, it's great. Yeah. Multiple speed tests is good. Speed test. Netflix has a pretty decent speed test that's handy too. It's just fast.com. Fast, FAST.com, and that will give you a rough idea. And so sometimes it's good to do some different speed tests. You can also Google speed test, and Google has a speed test built in. So there's a few different ones, but I generally use speedtest.net, and I can play around, and you can choose different servers, and you can start to do a few of them. You start to get a bit of an idea of roughly what your speed is. So that's that. Hey, Muddy. Muddy's in the car. Look at you. He's been to Home Depot. You're a busy man. All right.
But I wouldn't want to miss my weekly Obvio call.
There you go. Well, I mean, don't make that big a deal of it. Obviously, it wasn't the highest priority. You still had other things that you were going to do. You're just sort of multitasking. Cool. All right. I think we've exhausted the questions. You've exhausted me. That's one thing. Well, thank you, everyone. Not really. Haven't exhausted me. It's quite energizing, really. It's looking good, Jenny. Making it happen. We can't see how crooked it is from here.
It was me. It was a Jenny.
It looks good. Well, maybe you'll connect with Muddy and have a chat about it. Nice. Bye-bye. Bye, Jenny. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Be sure to hit us up on the chat that we have during Eastern business hours. You can catch us there. Within the Obvio admin, you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little chat button. You can chat to us there. You can also catch us at help@obv.io, the email. You can send any questions and comments there. Or you can come back again next week, and next week will be a more reasonable time for those on the West Coast, and that's 5 p.m. Eastern next Wednesday. So I hope we can see you then. Come back with your questions. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.